Good evening and welcome. Publisher Support Services brings you the 9th Standard Bank Sikuvile Journalism Awards.
From as early as I can remember, I had one wish. That my parents could have a voice of their own.
Standard Bank. It can be.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests, judges, and members of the media. I'm honored to speak to you tonight as we celebrate the work of the Fourth Estate over the last year. Tonight is your night. This gathering represents 365 days of passion, late nights, pleadings with editors, copywriters, photo editors, layouts, and graphic editors. It represents a journey of discovery, insights, and truth. Discovering what truth is, whose truth it is, why this truth is important, and to whom it is important. All this in an effort to keep us informed and active participants in this young and vibrant democracy. In the last year, well, almost, we have had to live, work, play, and learn apart from each other, isolated from colleagues, friends, and family. If we lived our lives in a bubble before COVID, we certainly had one thrust upon us in March through the hard lockdown. Suddenly, we have to understand living in a digital democracy. For us at Standard Bank, that meant we had to continue serving our clients in a way that allowed for them to protect their health while still living their daily lives and running their businesses. That meant concentrating on our digital services and empowering our employees who could work from home to do so. By the end of May, more than 75% of our staff were working from home, using our digital tools. While we are investigating a possible phased return to the office, this will be subject to certain risk assessments and country-specific regulations, including social distancing requirements. COVID arrived as a health problem that grew into a social challenge with dire economic consequences, threatening livelihoods, freedoms, and our very way of life. It was and still remains an all-consuming issue. But in the midst of the distress and potential despair, we found a way to bring a positive message to Africans. At Standard Bank, we launched our new brand, It Can Be Payoff Line, at the height of the pandemic. We made this difficult decision because even in times of difficulty, there is still room for stories that bring hope and joy. At Standard Bank, we say it can be because we believe that dreams matter and they fuel our growth. Hence, our brand promise is to find new ways to make dreams possible. It can be speaks to the ethos of who we are and where we are going. We are putting the dreams and aspirations of our clients, communities, and employees at the forefront, providing the inspiration and enablement required to unlock great possibilities in South Africa and in the rest of the continent we call home. The dreams and aspirations of all our stakeholders stretch beyond this difficult phase of the pandemic. As we slowly start the recovery from effects of COVID, Standard Bank will partner with others to play our role to reset the growth agenda of our country and continent. The media will continue to have a great part to play in this growth journey too. And we need to focus on the possibilities if we are to recover fully from the socio-economic ravages of COVID-19. We have achieved and faced so much, fighting an enemy we cannot see. Imagine if we used all that skill, energy, talent, and resolve in tackling those issues that we can see and in the process find the naked truth. Your job as the fourth estate is not done yet. It has just begun. Continue to be brave and continue to provide us with the stories we need to hear to become a better South Africa. Thank you, and please enjoy this special evening. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to the 9th Standard Bank Sikuvile Awards. My name is Tembekile Mkhototo. Great to be in your company. If you like what I'm wearing, also sponsored by Standard Bank, and we don't even have to appear at the Zondo Commission. So remember that you can follow the Publisher Support Services on Twitter tonight during the show. The handle is @publishers_SS. That handle again, @publishers_SS. And the hashtag tonight is SBSJA20. Our theme this year is the naked truth. Let's explain that a bit. The expression alludes to a fable in which truth and falsehood went swimming in a river. Falsehood, then dressed in truth's clothes, but truth refusing to take another's clothes went naked. This is what fine journalism is about, the total, unembellished and unaltered truth. Sometimes it's something that some may consider unpleasant or offensive, but it needs to be complete, plain and unadorned facts without concealment, something that politicians in this country, as I'm sure you know very well, sometimes struggle with. And tonight, we will hand over the Standard Bank Sikuvile trophies to journalists who we believe have integrity, courage, and dedication to a sometimes difficult and intense pursuit of the naked truth. Now, before we go anywhere, none of this would have been possible without our good friends at Standard Bank. And as you were listening there to Tulani Sibeko, Head of Marketing and Communications with the Standard Bank Group, I also had a chat with him earlier. Take a listen to that. Tulani, firstly, thank you so much for joining us. We are about over 200 days into the national lockdown, and as a bank, you've been right at the forefront of much of the response to the COVID-19 pandemic in so many aspects of our lives. I'm wondering how you have assessed, how you've read the impact on South Africans and how we're doing as a country.
Thank you so much, Temegile. I think as a country, we have done remarkably well, considering that there was no rehearsal for this reality, and South Africans, true to form, have been just exceptionally resilient. And what has been most heartening to see is how people have come together, partnered and collaborated to confront different issues. Granted, it has not been easy, and people have had to change the way they do things and the way they live. In the main, many people have complied with the protocols to ensure safety, social distancing, and all the responsible things to do. And above all, I think the spirit of can-do and the spirit of optimism has not died despite what has been the most challenging thing that people have experienced in their lifetimes, actually.
And, you know, it's one thing to speak about the individual impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, but linked to that also is how businesses have been doing. We've seen a lot of them going under, many closing permanently, in fact, and questions about whether businesses are coming to the party now that we're slowly easing the lockdown. How are they doing? Are they coming to the party?
That's an important question, and one I can speak mostly in relation to Standard Bank. You know, the pandemic started off as a health issue, but very quickly it evolved into a social issue and, of course, an economic issue. My sense is that business have done really well, and if I use Standard Bank as an example of that, when we were confronted with this reality, we took a view that says, as an organization, our purpose speaks to driving the growth of Africa. And then we ask ourselves, what can we do as an organization that drives growth? And we decided on 3 constituencies. 1, our employees, 2, our customers, and 3, our community. We did a lot of things to ensure the safety of our staff and also enable them through technology for them to be able to continue to serving despite the difficult situation. For our customers, the most pressing thing has been cash flow in the early days of this pandemic. And through our resources, we invoked payment relief just to give people some cash flow for a period of 3 months. But it didn't stop at that. We ensured that we provided appropriate products for a time such as this one. And the products ranged from Simply Blue, which was an e-commerce solution that allowed somebody who had to shut their physical doors of the business to open their digital doors and trade online. And there's a few other things that we did. But it didn't also end there. We recognized that our community needed specific resources. Government could do something, but also we needed to partner and assist government. And it's in that space that we have donated almost 50 million rand through different avenues, including partnering with organizations like Gift of the Givers, which are on the ground and have the expertise to provide the much needed help. So I would say that we're not the only ones who've done what we've done. Therefore, if we use ourselves as a proxy, it's fair to say that business has contributed their fair share.
The theme this year, of course, for the awards is the naked truth. And I think we can all agree that as a country, there's never been a time where truth has ever been more important. Would you agree?
I would totally agree. I love this theme. And as I thought about it, I was reminded of a fable, I don't know how true it is, about the origins of the naked truth. It is said that truth and falsehood, they went bathing together. And when they finished bathing, falsehood had put on the clothes of truth. And truth, confronted with the prospect of putting on falsehood clothes, refused and said, I would rather go naked. And at a time that we are in, there's just too much falsehoods. Of course, euphemistically, we call it fake news. And it is at a time like this one that the unadulterated truth, the facts, need to be guarded and championed, because in the absence of those who are responsible, in the absence of those who are ethical, in the absence of those who are professional, like you guys are, there's a very high risk that the truth would be overwhelmed by a lot of falsehoods. So I'm super excited, and I commend the institution for choosing this very relevant topic of the naked truth.
Thulani Sibeko, Chief Marketing Officer with the Standard Bank Group. Good to speak to you. As you can tell, Tulani and I enjoy reading the same literature and quotes. But anyway, I'd like to introduce you now to a very special guest who's going to be with us for most of the program tonight to discuss the awards being presented and bring insight as far as what made the judges arrive at the various decisions on the winners and, of course, the strength of their work. A current university lecturer in journalism practice, she has over 30 years held different positions in the communication and media space, from a reporter on social, political and economic issues to title editor to publisher of several magazines. Who am I speaking about? I'm talking about Liseka Mda, who is this year's convener judge. Sis Liseka, very good evening to you. You have been involved in the process from the very beginning to where we are now. Take us through the weeks of hard work that you've put into this moment.
Ours was in August, but of course the journalists were working last year. So this year the awards were, the entries were accepted digitally for the first time. We decided before COVID, but also COVID made it the route to go. So we had like a good 2 weeks in August that we were going through the entries, and the entries were of very high caliber, and we got up almost 400 entries this year. So it's been good and covers the perennials, corruption. There was the drought this year, and we also had gender-based violence.
And there's very much more of local stories than the usual national pickings, I understand.
Most definitely, especially in categories like hard news. People were looking more locally. Yes.
All right, and we'll go through all of that category by category, and all categories are open to newspaper, print and online reporters. Entrants, by the way, are discouraged from submitting the same entry in multiple categories. In photographic features, for example, a series of photographs will count as one entry. In keeping with our theme then, we explore the bubbles and the contents to reveal the naked truth. Our first category this evening is hard news. These are the nominees.
Martie se dood was niemand se skuld. Arne van Sail, Netwerk 24, Die Burger. Inside the Great Rupert Heist, Graham Hoskin, Sunday Times. Body of Work, Xenophobia, Jan Bornman, Madeleine Cronje, James Otway, New Frame. And the winner tonight for hard news, Graham Hoskin.
Much to Johan Rupert's disgust, we published the story on the front page. I mean, the disdain at which we were treated when trying to do follow-ups on the article was hysterical. But yeah, it was just this absolute Robin Hood type story, and it was hard, it was fast, and it was an incredibly exciting story to work on.
Mr. Graham there, and let's come back to you, Sis Liseka. Talk about the hard news category now, and you've seen just the quality of the wins there. We'll also get into the commendation in a moment, but I want us to speak about the actual winner and what it was about the submission that won you as the judges over.
Well, he managed to get the trust of a number of sources, that gave him insight into this story. So from police to security, whatever, then he could paint a picture. It was almost like a movie, the story, the way he presented it of how the heist was conducted.
And I mentioned the commendation just before coming to you, and we're looking this year at Brimilda Swartboy. She's with the Worcester Standard, which comes back to our earlier conversation about just the local focus in the news submissions.
Definitely, this is as local as it can get. The story is about a woman who worked for ShopRite in Worcester, and who got killed during a robbery. But this story then, it's about her family, her children, talking about how she educated them with her supermarket salary. One is a dentist, they are all like professionals. So it's what their mother did for them. It was a touching story that Brumida treated very well.
No lack of choice as far as the hard news category is concerned. But we're going to move on now to columns and editorials. Take a look at the nominees.
For body of work, geweld teen vroue worde wat hard slaan and wit mense lê ook aan die sekte. Carla Lewis, beeld. Get Out, a gutted DA stumbles into the past. Richard Poplack, Daily Maverick. Body of work, spare a thought for poor old liberal caught up in the DA crisis. Why the focus on femicide? Look no further than the reasons women are killed by men they know. And wouldn't it be nice if politicians learned to apply their minds? Sue de Groot, Sunday Times. The Columns and Editorials Trophy is awarded to Richard Poplack.
The piece I wrote is about the Democratic Alliance, the official opposition party dwindling by the day. It is my very strong belief that as journalists it's important that we hold opposition parties to account for their very often terrible behavior. We cannot have a democracy if we don't have opposition parties and a marketplace of political ideas.
Richard Poplack, congratulations. I'm very disappointed there wasn't more swearing from Richard's acceptance speech tonight. And he focused on what was a big issue throughout the 2018-2019 news cycle, in fact, and that was the turmoil in the Democratic Alliance.
Most definitely, yes, the imploding DA. Yeah, he takes the DA from the Helen days through Musi and a lot of Herman Mashaba last year, and talks about how the DA struggles, especially with transformation.
We need to also just say congratulations, and in fact in our commendation tonight, Wilmien Brummer with Netwerk 24. Dit, juffrou Venter, is hoekom jy nie 'n kind klap nie. Do you see that I'm from the Free State? I did quite well on that one. Also quite an incredible piece.
I'm from Transkei, so Afrikaans I don't do, sorry. Sorry about that.
You're a product of the mission schools.
Yes.
Let's talk about Wilmien's piece.
Wilmien's piece was about corporal punishment, basically arguing against it and blaming it for contributing to the violence in society.
All right. Take you to our third category tonight, and we're going to look at enterprise news. Here's a list of the nominees.
The first, UniZulu students' accommodation conditions are inhumane. And broken teachers, broken children, the high cost of matric. Bongekile Matupe, Mail and Guardian. Public toilet shame, Greg Arday, New Frame. ANC gambles on Twitter influencers. Susan Comrie, Amabungane. The Enterprise News winner is awarded to Susan Comrie.
This wasn't a story that I intended to investigate. It wasn't a tip-off, anything like that. It wasn't even anything that was in the news. It really just came about from me watching the reaction to one of my stories on Twitter and realizing from some of the tweets that there was something going on. And that really kind of led me down a rabbit hole, as these things tend to go, into investigating social media, the role of influencers, and how social media influencers are manipulating our political discourse and shaping our politics.
So here's what I love about Susan's piece, Enterprise category winner this year. She took something that was going on social media. No one else was looking into it. She then followed up, and it actually turned out to be quite a story. And isn't that one of the basics of journalism?
Fantastic, fantastic. And this involves our mayor in Johannesburg. And the thing about this enterprise category is that journalists have to push themselves. They have to find that story that is unique. So that is what makes this category very interesting. the stories people come up with.
Congratulations once again to Susan Comrie. Special commendation in this category goes to Micah Reddy for how a South African hunting resort opened a window to a Saudi crown prince's business empire. That piece was done by Amabungane with the Financial Mail. Our fourth award tonight is in the feature writing segment. Take a look at the finalists.
Government or God? Ahmed Kaji and Thomas Holder, EWN. No headstone for Aviwe, The Woman a Country Forgot. Atandiwe Sava, Mail and Guardian. Cost of Corruption. How a Toddler Died at Bosasa's Detention Center. Joan van Dijk, Mail and Guardian, Becky Sisa. Judgment Day in Doornfontein. Sean Christie, Sunday Times. Searching for Griffiths Mklenge's disappeared car. Sean Smillie, New Frame. Die Trainer van die Dood. Wilhelmine Brummer. The Standard Bank Sikuvile statuette for Best Feature Writing goes to Ahmed Kaji and Thomas Holder.
I chose this particular story to enter into this competition because it was a feature that focused on a number of topics ranging from mismanagement of funds and absence of accountability to poor management and infrastructure and rainfall patterns.
Water is taken for granted and is being severely mismanaged by the government departments responsible to do so. Not only that, the government departments were fought with maladministration, corruption, financial mismanagement, and nothing was being done to hold them accountable. The government knew about it and nothing was being done to create a solution around it. Worse still was the corruption, was the maladministration, was the theft. This was a story that had to gain national exposure very quickly. It was of absolute importance.
Well done to Thomas Holder and Ahmed Kaji, winning tonight for Eyewitness News. EWN, family of mine, I must declare. They told the water story. We've been talking about that from what, about 2016? How did they do it differently, Sis Lisa?
They did it beautifully. This was a multimedia entry. So they used words, they used video interviews, they had graphs, they had, tables all telling the story of drought and climate change and how it affected, especially, the community of Grahamstown. It was fantastic. Yeah.
And going again into those communities that often would not get the attention of mainstream media.
Definitely.
Which is so important. All right, give commendation tonight to Jacques Meyerberg for Talgenoot. Valkos in Doodloopstraat. If you see me in the street and I've butchered that, do not give chase. But anyway, earlier this week, Atandiwe Saba, who's news editor with the Mail and Guardian, was lucky enough to talk to international, well-known and respected journalist Maria Ressa. Now, Maria Angelita Ressa is a Filipino-American journalist and author. She is best known for being co-founder of Rappler, and she's also the chief executive there. She previously spent nearly 2 decades working as a lead investigative reporter in Southeast Asia for international broadcaster CNN. The original video, by the way, of this conversation is about 55 minutes long, but we've taken just a bit of it for you tonight. But if you want to watch it in full, make your way to YouTube. We'll put it up later. Take a look.
First and foremost, I just want to thank you again, and I want us to jump right into you talking to us about the case against you, what you and your colleagues have been accused of, and how this can relate back to a story going way back 8 years ago that was published by Rappler.
So first, thank you for all your kind words. I think this is an incredible time to be a journalist, despite the challenges, and South Africa is very interesting for me to look at as well, because, you have grappled, the last few years have also been challenging for journalists, and journalists have won largely, right? I think globally, our information ecosystem has been turned upside down by technology. And while tech has abdicated responsibility for protecting the public sphere, journalists have held the line. So, thank you also for your work. Look, like the cases against me, on June 15th, a former colleague and I were found guilty of cyber libel. And to show you how crazy this day was for me, it was for a story we published 8 years ago, a story I didn't write, edit, or supervise at a time when the law we supposedly violated didn't exist, right? So Kafkaesque is the right word. I felt like Joseph K. in the trial. But this is it's only one of 8 cases, 8 criminal cases that I have 8 arrest warrants, and that roughly there are 3 buckets. It's cyber libel, securities fraud, which is the mother case, essentially saying that we are owned by foreigners. Not true. And then the last one is tax evasion. I have 5 tax evasion cases, and that's funny because in order to even get those cases to court, the government had to reclassify Rappler as, and this is a direct quote from the papers, a dealer in securities. So essentially they said, since you're kind of like a stock brokerage house, you owe these taxes for selling stocks, which we don't do, So the only thing I can do is laugh and realize that this is the weaponization of the law. And it's happening not just in the Philippines, it's happening in many parts of the world. The things that we've gone through in the last 4 years is something that a lot of other journalists in other countries are going through. In 2016, which is when it began, so 4 years ago, the government, a narrative was seeded on social media, and that is that journalist equals criminal. In 2016, I laughed, because by next year, I'll have been a journalist for 35 years. And I thought, no one will believe that. But social media is different. And, all of 2016, imagine hearing this a million times. And people then starting to say, wait, maybe that's true. Then in 2017, the same narrative came top down. Journalist equals criminal. President Duterte in his State of the Nation address essentially said that. 2018, 11 cases and investigations filed by the government against me and Rappler. 2019, I get 8 arrest warrants. I'm arrested twice in about 3 months, and I go to court. I spend 90% of my time in court. And then in 2020, the first case gets a resolution. We're found guilty of cyber libel. Look at how news is distributed today. You can't take it for granted because journalists, news organizations are no longer the gatekeepers. We lost that power around 2014. By 2014, and I peg it to 2014 because that's when Crimea happened. That's when, the Ukraine, the Russian, again, depending on who you talk to, they're different things, right? The 2 different realities that happened in the Ukraine. And that was when we began to see kind of a nostalgia for authoritarian leaders in countries like India, in Indonesia. The world had just gotten too complex and had changed too fast that people wanted someone else to make the decisions. Well, here comes technology to say, wow, well, you're getting your news from Facebook today. The world's largest distributor of news is Facebook. And yet that social media platform, along with the rest, YouTube, Twitter, their very principles actually prioritize the spread of lies laced with anger and hate over facts. This is what the data has shown us through the last 4 years, right? That these social media platforms are optimized for growth and optimized for the spread of lies. So meaning they're biased against facts, which are kind of boring, and they're biased against journalism. So in that ecosystem, and look at why this is a technology problem, right? Because essentially social media platforms created in Silicon Valley didn't set out to destroy democracy, but what they did is they wanted to keep us on their platforms. In the battle for truth, journalism is activism, right? Because that's what we're fighting for. And frankly, the people who are the truth tellers are not doing a good enough job of fighting for the facts, because the social media platforms that they travel on prioritize the lies, right? Lies laced with anger and hate spread further and faster than the facts. I say this all the time. And this was in a 2018 Science magazine article that has all the stats, right? Look, for me, it all changed when I was arrested, and the police arrested me at 5 p.m. They came to the office and picked me up. Not coincidentally, that's when courts closed, so I couldn't post bail. They didn't know that I knew there's a court that's open until 9 p.m. And so I was pushing them to let me get the paperwork done so I could post bail. But they came with a warrant of arrest that didn't even have a number for the amount of bail I needed to post, right? So it was defective to begin with. They wanted me to feel their power. And when they kept me overnight, when they detained me overnight, that's when I realized power abuses power. That's when I thought my rights have been violated. And that's when I began to rethink, how do I deal with this as a journalist? I'm a journalist, yes, but I'm also a Filipino citizen. And a small Filipino citizen next to the Philippine government, right? Next to an almost omnipotent government in our place. So that's when I began to think, I don't even have to ask the person what they did. I know what I did. I didn't do anything wrong. And I know how I was treated. I know the abuse of power. So that's when the handcuffs came off, because as journalists, we actually follow standards and ethics, right? We don't comment. We watch what we say. But thank you, Philippine government. You helped me find how journalism changes and reacts in environments where violence and fear, and where a government uses that against its citizens, how we need to evolve. How can civil society work if they don't have facts? How can they act if they don't have facts? How can democracy work if we don't have facts? Right? So I think that's the other part is we need to collaborate across the board. And again, South Africa would know this from its own history. The Philippines knows it from fighting Ferdinand Marcos and the People Power Revolt, right? Journalists, activists, human rights activists, civil rights activists, people standing up for rule of law. All of these components are critically important. And one of the things, 4 years ago, we started in the Philippines trying to unite the journalists, the different news organizations. We grew up at a time when news organizations compete against each other, but this isn't one of those times. This is a time when we need to collaborate, because the truth tellers, the ones who stand by the facts, the ones who are held accountable, need to gain power in the social media space. That information is power. You can inundate people with gossip, but facts, news, journalism determines governance, determines rule of law, determines integrity of markets. And, without facts, how the heck are we going to have elections? With the way social media platforms are using technology, do we even have free will if we are being insidiously manipulated? These are huge questions. And, as I lay them out for you, we're going to find the solutions. The only weapon a journalist has is to shine the light, to keep telling stories that matter. And we need to do that. So it's a tough time for younger journalists. They need to learn the craft, the profession. At the same time, the distribution is a whole other many-headed hydra. And that's where I think news managers, journalists who want to understand it, this is where we come in.
That was a very, very fascinating interview with Maria Ressa, the co-founder of Rappler. And I hope you guys take something from this. It was a lot of the points that she made were just those things that we need to hear during this time in our country as journalists, during the work that we do, and I guess journalists across South Africa.
By the way, you can watch that full 55-minute interview with Maria Ressa on YouTube. We're putting that up immediately after the show. Let's move on to investigative journalism in South Africa tonight. Here's a look at the finalists.
How an inside man stole and sold African internet resources worth 311 million rand. Jan Vermeulen, My Broadband. The EFF Rent Racket. Micah Reddy, Stefans Brummer, Amabungane. Cruising nicely on VBS Money. Paulie van Wyk, Scorpio, Daily Maverick. Tonight's winner for investigative journalism is Paulie van Wyk.
Journalism is one of the pillars of a democracy. So thank you for Standard Bank Sikuvile Awards to help us strengthen journalism.
Congratulations to Paulie van Wyk, obviously winning for her work on the VBS story, a story that months later she is still following, Sislizek.
Definitely. If you've heard the phrase follow the money, Paulie followed the money. I mean, this story is about the leadership of the EFF and their links to the stolen VBS money. So it is how the money was spent. Paulie was tracking the EFF credit cards as they went across the country, even across the borders.
And it hasn't been an easy story to follow, because we know the EFF has contended that there is no link. Paulie van Wyk, to a degree, receiving quite a lot of backlash, but she still has continued to do the story.
Insults, intimidation. She has been called all kinds of names, but she did not stop.
We'll move on to the next category in a moment, but I want to talk about Bongani Fuzile's work on the toilet scandal. That was in the Daily Dispatch. Again, back to that community and local news theme.
Yes, yes. This is the Eastern Cape, and this is a story about collusion between, you know, the government and private companies, 45 million rands worth of corruption there.
So well done to Bongani as well tonight.
Definitely.
We're going to talk now about the editorial cartoons category and show you the people who have been nominated this year.
Body of Work, On My Lane, and Final Destination. Bethwell Clifford Mangena, African News Agency. For Second Coming in New Frame, and Cookbooks in Mail and Guardian, Carlos Amato. Carlos Amato wins for editorial cartoons.
The two cartoons I submitted, one was about the DA and one about the ANC. Both about how terrible each party is. And that's where we're at. We've got no options. We need new political forces to emerge. We need new faces.
So it takes many behind-the-scenes professionals to put a show such as this one together. Among them, we use a professional voice artist whose voice you've been hearing tonight on those videos of the nominees and the winners, and sometimes the names of the journalists and their stories do become a bit of a tongue twister. Here is voice artist Chilu Lemba giving some Afrikaans names his best shot at pronunciation.
Wit mense.
Wit mense.
Lei ook.
Lei ook. No, lei ook. Lei ook.
Aan die siekte.
Aan die siekte.
It wasn't half bad. Let's try that. Die treine van die dood.
Die treine van die dood. Sorry.
Die treine.
Die treine.
Van die dood.
Van die dood.
Nice. Wow. Willemien Brummer.
Willemien Brummer.
There's a R at the end.
Okay.
Willemien Brummer.
Willemien Brummer.
Nice. Geld soos bossies.
Geld soos bossies in dagga.
That's it. And
Klinknaalbroek. Vir
'n koninklike.
Vir 'n koninklike.
Lovely. That wasn't bad at all.
Why didn't I have that much encouragement when I was battling with my Afrikaans earlier? How good is yours? Non-existent. So you can't say bossies. That's all I picked up there. Let's try. This is like
bossies. What is it? Bossies?
It's as good as it's going to get from you, isn't it? All right. So we're going to show you some of the finalists then this year in the graphic journalism category.
25 years of democracy, a timeline. Isabella Butchilomake, City Press. Body of work. John McCann, Mail and Guardian. For graphic journalism, the winner, Isabella Butchilomake.
I entered 25 years of democracy as timeline because I believe it is important for us to remember our history. 25 years seems like a long time, but fun fact, I'm only 2 years older than our democracy, and I was able to fit key moments on one page, which proves that we still have a long way to go.
Congratulations to Isabella. They're winning the graphic journalism category this year. Very quickly, Sis Liseka, she was the only submission in the category, well, successful one. How did that work? It wasn't a long list.
She's the winner.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. It was definitely not the only one. But she did a graphic of 25 years of democracy. So she used like facts and figures in a digestible way to sort of show the diversity of South Africa's democracy.
And it's only taken me half an hour to get myself completely confused. I'm quite impressed.
No problem.
Commendation this year for Peter van der Merwe from the Business Day for managing SA's water. So you see, there was more than one submission.
There you go.
Never good at counting, I was. Let's get to my favorite category, the type of stuff I like to talk about. And we're talking about the popular news category. You'll see why it's my favorite.
Mampuru Metampatlele, writing for Sunday World, entered 2 ministers and a fed-up slay queen, which is about an aspiring actress who reveals all about her affairs with Mantashe and Mboweni. Congratulations to Mampuru.
So, but what made the story to be strong, it was the fact that the minister, Mr. Mantashe, conceded to paying bribe to journalists to kill the story, and also for the fact that I have kept the story for a year and I just couldn't publish without verifying facts, without being sure and all that. And when it happened finally, and that was it, that was the story for me.
Mampuru Mphahlele, the journalist who gave us Gwede the Tiger Mantashe in the past year of journalism. We're going to take a short break.
Hi, Sikuvile.
Hi, Sikuvile.
Well, yeah, how's it, man?
Hi, you guys. I've been trying to record it with all kinds of different tech, which you can probably see here, and I couldn't get any of it to work.
If I'm the recipient of this award, I will take it as encouragement to carry on pissing people off.
Enterprise development, or the enterprise news category.
I would be over the moon. I'd be super happy. It would be super cool. It would be.
Let me just start that again.
Much to Johan Rupert's disgust, we published the story on the front page.
So yeah, that is a huge challenge.
Well, for me, it was like a Robin Hood movie.
So, second question, I think, was... Whoops. Okay.
The one thing I really want is what I would say is immortality. I want to achieve what Hemingway has.
Sean Utham did that.
I wouldn't mind to have what Shakespeare has.
Annoying, important people.
And my neighbour's cat. He's a big influence in my life.
Some of my work may be prescribed and taught to schools.
Hopefully I'll remember them.
What can we do? We're on the road to nowhere with this lot.
Oh, you're done.
Thank you so much for having me here today.
It's a wrap, Doug.
And you see why they're all in print and not broadcasting. Let's take you to our nominees tonight in the news photographs category.
Musi Maimane resigns. Alistair Russell, Sowetan. Refugees clash with police. Brendan Magar, Weekend Argus. Springboks rock proud Mother City. David Ritchie, Cape Times. Nicholas Nino, Dion Vivier, Netwerk 24, Beeld. UNHCR, Refugees. Jacques Nellis, The Citizen. The winning news photographer, Brendan Magar.
Had to get to know a lot of the individuals and their backgrounds and their stories. And I think in doing so, a bond was created where I felt like it wasn't just me documenting random people anymore. It was me documenting friends and trying to tell their story. And that made it so much more special for me.
Congratulations to Brendan Magar. Now, in the category of feature photographs, the nominees are
Cyclone Idai, First Response. Alistair Russell, Sunday Times. Musa Struggle and Search for the Stage, and Chaos the Lion. Alon Sky, Sunday Times. In Safe Arms. Ayanda Ndamane, Weekend Argus. Sad Plight for Refugees in SA. Brendan Magar, Weekend Argus. The coveted Feature Photographs Trophy goes to Alistair Russell.
They had they experienced some of the hugest losses, and were quite unrepresented in the weeks that followed the storm. But due to their remoteness, it was very difficult to get to these places and to sort of access roads and all of that sort of stuff. But with great grit and determination, we were able to get in there and do some really, really good work. So yeah, that's why I chose to enter the work.
So Lisa, you look at those two winners, Brendan, as well as Alistair, and their work is testament to the saying, a picture speaks 1,000 words, or tells 1,000 words. Is it 1,000 words? It's late in the evening. It's late for me.
Words. Yeah. I mean, photography needs, a high level of engagement. So if you are like doing news, you must capture like that moment, with the lighting, right? Whereas for features, in terms of what Alistair did, which was the floods in, is it Mozambique?
Yes, it was. Cyclone Idai.
Yes. So there's also engagement still, but it's more sort of patience and getting that story frame
finding
after
the
frame
right shot
after frame. Yes.
And we're going to look at much of the same, but now looking at powerful images in the sports photographs category.
Dedication. Etienne van Rensburg, Val Weekblad. Bird's Eye and Circle of Excellence. Yakumare, Netwerk 24, Rapport. Sia Kolisi, Pandulwazi Jikelo, Cape Times. Sports Photographer of the Year, Pandulwazi Jikelo.
And the Stormers had not lost a game before coming to this game against the Crusaders, and they managed to play a draw against such a tough team that has been giving them a hard time for quite some time. And the New Zealand teams were actually giving the Stormers a hard time. But now the way he performed in the day was really brilliant, and he showed leadership, which actually came from the confidence of leading the Springbok under two coaches.
Congratulations, Pandulwazi. Let's look at presentation now and the 4 submissions that stood out in the year that was.
Rugby World Cup joy. John Grant Munro, De Burger. What if we just shut down SAA? And who broke auditing and can it be fixed? Sean Utham, Financial Mail. Inmate Zuma. Tian Skrier, Report. Die Stempel S. Vattel. Vernon Janse van Rensburg, Beeld. Congratulations to Sean Utham for presentation.
Being nominated is great and motivating in itself. Receiving the award would be a highlight in my career at the FM. Receiving the award would be an accolade for the team at Financial Mail, who produces a high-quality magazine weekly.
To Sean Utham, and he wins for What If We Just Shut Down SAA and Who Broke Auditing and Can It Be Fixed? Cicely Zaga, let's talk about his submission.
The SAA one, these were both covers of Financial Mail, and the SAA one showed like a rusting SAA plane, which sort of talks to the state of South African Airways now. And the auditing one, you've got a school blackboard, full of auditing errors, etc. But it talks to Financial Mail, paying serious attention to covers, being, sale points and, areas of design. They are doing well.
Fantastic. And we want to talk about multi-platform stories because that's where journalism has evolved to in the past few years. Here are the people who've stood out the most.
Censored and State of Violence. Athandiwe Saba and Jacques Coetzee, Mail and Guardian. Bloedspoor deur Kreeusdorp. Jana Marx, Tinus Dippenaar, Mareike Kamsti, Caroline Simon and Jaco Grobbelaar. Netwerk 24. The winner for multi-platform stories is the team from Netwerk 24.
A cult and a murder spree that left 11 people dead. A first in South Africa's legal history. It's a story that gripped South Africa and it begged for long-format narrative journalism.
As journalists, we must tell the what, but never forget to keep on asking, like the eternally curious 3-year-old, but why?
Congratulations to the team at Netwerk 24, and they covered that story that gripped the country, the cult murders in the Krugersdorp area, but they did what journalism has become now, where the story not only has to live in print, but also has to often have video, and sometimes you even voice it.
Told in 6 chapters. They did a great job. It was like a TV documentary, true crime, and gripping. Yes.
Gripping story, and just the devastation of what happens when people do join cults. Commendation this year goes to Dennis Webster, Madeleine Cronje, Ryan Honeyball, all from the New Frame. They are getting mentioned tonight for their story on 7 lean years in the Northern Cape. Well, our following category is lifestyle. Here are the people who stood out.
Geld soos bossies en dagga and Klinknalbroek vir 'n koninklikker. Carla Lewis, Beeld. Hierdie boek het my byna doodgemaak and Hoop in die Hel. Elmarie Rautenbach. Rapport Weekliks. Body of Work. Essays Codeine Love Affair. Let's Talk About Period Sex and Where does your trash end up? Phumlani Sithebe, City Press. In the lifestyle category, the winner is Phumlani Sithebe.
That lifestyle news doesn't always have to be fluff and soft. I don't believe either of those stories are what you would consider fluffy, even though that is the purpose of this particular branch and avenue of news. So that was my attempt to do that. Also paying respects to the gonzo style, which I'm a fan of course. And that was my thinking about it, just to explore that and hold it up to the lights in the lifestyle section, but in a way that was approachable and less rigid than perhaps the news beats allows.
Congratulations to Phumlani Sithebe. Sisliseka, lifestyle. Are we seeing an improvement in just the quality of entries there?
Yes, and also the number of entries. It increases. This is the softer part of life, you know.
But also the more colourful, isn't it? Yes. Because the stories have a bit more room to breathe, if you will.
Yes, it is observation of the human condition and finding the right words to relate that.
Fantastic. Commendation to Mbali Sikakana. She's tonight being mentioned for the Fraternity of Lived Genius. That appeared in the Mail and Guardian. We're going to move on now to one of the other very important categories that we're looking at, and I'm talking about the upcoming or Rising Star of the Year in journalism. And the 2020 upcoming Rising Star of the Year award goes to Brimilda Swartboy. She is with the Worcester Standard, and she stood out this year for her article, Sy het hard vir ons gewerk. All right, we're going to speak to her now live. She's actually joining us by Zoom. Brimilda, you are our upcoming Rising Star of the Year award winner this year. Congratulations. How are you feeling?
Oh my goodness, hello Tembekile. Well, I have to tell you, I'm speechless. Wow, I'm really speechless, Tembekile. I have to tell you, the IT manager for tonight, Carly, she texted me a while ago and she said, Brimilda, you have to join us to the meeting. You have to go live with us. Your category is going up. And I wanted to tell her, but Carly, my category already passed. I really didn't expect this. This is extremely unexpected for me, but it just shows that hard work really do pay off, Tembekile.
And I'm with Sisliseka here, who, of course, was part of our judging panel. And I want you to just talk to us about the submission that you sent through. Like you said, you were nominated in the other category. You're now our Rising Star. What did you submit, and why did you think it stood such a good chance of making an impression?
First, I have to tell you, the story that I wrote it when I was actually working at the Worcester Standard, but currently I'm with Netwerk 24. It happened last year. It was a very tragic story of a woman who was shot shortly after she arrived at her place of work. And this was a very emotional story for me, because I remember when I interviewed her family, her husband told me that he used to drop her off for work every single morning, and he never thought that one day, shortly after he had dropped her off, that he will receive a phone call that his wife was shot at the place of work.
And Brimilda, in a moment, I want to show everyone your video that you sent in earlier before you even know that you'd won. But as I was saying, I'm with Sisliseka here from the judging panel, and she would also like to say something. Sisliseka.
Hi, Brimilda. You didn't only enter the story about the lady from Shoprite. The other story that impressed us a lot from you was the one you did on the plight of the farm workers. Do you remember that? Yes, exactly. The plight of the farm workers who were having deductions from their salaries for a funeral plan, and it turned out that their employer was not paying that over. Do you want to talk about your experience doing that and what you have to go through to tell that story?
Yes, definitely. So That story, how I actually got that story, one of the farm workers walked in, he came to our office and he asked for one of the journos to just help him. This is what's happening. They feel like they are in the dark. They have been let off, but they don't know why. And I said, okay, I'm willing to listen. Tell me all about what do you know so far and what has happened. And I remember when I sent a few media inquiries. I spoke to more of the farm workers, and eventually it came out that they have been paying their funeral policies, and it has been deducted from their salaries, but it hasn't been paid to the insurance company for months. That's what they realized, and they actually told me that they were worried that what if one of them died and they didn't have funeral cover, without them knowing that it hasn't been paid for months. So they were left without jobs, without electricity in their homes, on their farms, without funeral cover. And with that story, I honestly tried to help them by digging deeper into what was really happening on that farm.
Bramilda, you've done fantastic work in the past year, and we can't wait to see what more is going to come from you now that you've moved on to Netwerk 24. That is Bramilda Swartboy, the winner for this year's Rising Star category.
With regard to this story, I remember I had an interview with the husband of the woman who was killed at a workplace, and he told me that he used to drop her off for work every single morning, and he never thought that one day she would be killed minutes after he had dropped her off. All in all, this story definitely touched me.
The 2020 upcoming Rising Star of the Year award goes to Bramilda Swartboy from Worcester Standard for her article Sy het hard vir ons gewerk.
From a rising star to a veteran of the industry, and she's a journalist who was active in the South African anti-apartheid and trade union movements. The SOGA Lifetime Achiever for 2020 recipient obtained a bachelor's degree in journalism from Rhodes University in Grahamstown. This was in 1979. The South African authorities detained her for 2 months in 1980 after she'd exposed police killings. Well, during her detention, she was held in solitary confinement, tortured and beaten. But as is her mind and determination, she kept moving forward, continually changing and improving the political landscape in our country, so those of us coming later could benefit from all her sacrifices and loss. Her life reads like a series, not just a book. SOGA Lifetime Achievement winner this year is none other than Zubaydah Jaffa. And unfortunately, Zubaydah could not be with us tonight due to another important commitment, but she did make time to send us this message.
Thank you so much for this award. It is deeply humbling indeed to be recognized by my peers. Thank you to all the judges who made this deliberation. Our generation of journalists did what they had to do when they had to do it. From the magnificent coverage of the pandemic this year, I'm left with no doubt that the present generation of journalists understand their role as chroniclers of our lives. I'm often overwhelmed to witness the enthusiasm and determination of young journalists across the country who come from humble backgrounds and inspire those around them. Our country is gripped in a bipolar condition. It is not clear how the healing will come, but it will. The challenge is to keep our minds in balance so that we can be strong enough to root out corruption and gender-based violence, while at the same time fully understand our blessings as a people. I've been privileged to witness the good and the bad in the underbelly of our lives, and believe that we will find the strength to pull through the darkness and chaos in the world. We have no choice but to soldier on. Defeat is a temporary condition. It is when we give up that we make this final. This award is named after Alan Kirkland Soga, the son of South Africa's first local graduate, Tia Soga. He and others like Sal Plaatje have carved a path for journalism in this country that has left us with a rich heritage. I would like to see this studied at undergraduate level at all our journalism schools. It is a shame that their names do not trip off our tongues, and instead the lodestars of journalism remain colonial. We are all aware that journalism is in crisis across the world. In a way, this offers us a blank slate moment to question our practices. Locally, as you all know, more than 700 journalists have already lost their jobs and several publications have closed down. Will the industry recraft to serve the South African public more fully, or will it be reduced to serving different business interests only? How will we strengthen the rich tradition of community-based journalism in all languages that will move us away from the echo chambers of the elite and enable the unheard voices of all to be heard? Hope, as always, lies eternal in the human breast. Already there are small efforts in our neighborhoods to tell our stories online. We have the resilience to claw our way through this darkness towards the light of a just and fair country. Journalists have to continue to clear the cobwebs and share both the good and bad of our amazing country and nurture the hope that can help us to continue to trudge up the steep mountains ahead. We have done it before and can do it again. I thank you.
That was the incredible Zubeida Jaffa, this year's Soga Lifetime Achievement Award winner. Now, the South African National Editors Forum, that's SANEF, is a non-profit organization whose members are editors, senior journalists, and journalism trainers from all areas of South Africa. Now, as I was telling you, of just how varied the membership of SANEF is. Now, they've been doing a lot of critical work during this time of the COVID-19 lockdown, trying to assist journalists who, as you heard, they're reflected by Zubeida, have found themselves out of work as a result of the lockdown. Some history on SANEF. It was founded in 1996, and membership fees have been what has helped it run over the years, and media industry donors, including corporates, have also made a contribution. Now, on that note, let's welcome the PSS Director, Hussein Kajika, to talk more about our connection tonight with SANEF. And Hussein, you've got a contribution of your own to make to SANEF at such a critical time.
Yes. So let me start by saying that Standard Bank has been the primary sponsor of the Standard Bank Sikuvile Journalism Awards for 9 years now. And this year, obviously PSS is very grateful for their support over all these years. This year, we're delighted to announce that they have heeded the call for greater support from corporate towards journalism and towards the media sector, and have pledged an amount towards the Journalism Relief Fund. So with me, I have Sibu Ngawa, the chairperson of SANEF, who will be managing these funds. So Sibu, let's go and have a look at the amount that Standard Bank has pledged.
Let's do it.
Quite a presentation.
Well, there we go, an amount of 500,000 rand.
There I'm rubbing my hands in anticipation.
Right, well, it's not only that. In addition to that, the publishers have all gotten together and we've discussed and looked at our budgets and looked at our reserves, and we've agreed with Standard Bank to pledge another amount towards the Journalism Relief Fund. So let's go and have a look at the second amount. So it's another 500,000 rand. So you have R1 million towards the Journalism Relief Fund, and I'm sure that SANEF will manage this. Is for to support the journalists that have lost their jobs, have taken salary cuts, have sacrificed so much during this pandemic.
Certainly,
and we'll leave it over to you to manage.
Certainly, that's exactly what will happen here, Hussein. And we'd like to thank PSS and Standard Bank for this generous donation. And I think it comes at a time when most of our colleagues have lost their jobs, as we have said. Actually, it will go a long way in alleviating the hardships that have been experienced by some of our journalists during this lockdown period. We went we launched our media relief fund, where we had the first round, we paid out over R1 million. We are now in the process of a second round of that, and through this contribution and other generous donations, we'll be able to go as far as the third round. So thank you very much for that, and I think journalism in South Africa is also grateful for that, and the rest, I speak on for the rest of the media industry in thanking everyone for that generous contribution.
Thank you. We're very confident that SANEF will manage these funds very well.
And I look forward to my personal donation. Hussein. Thank you so much. Hussein Kajaka and Sbu Ngalwa.
From as early as I can remember, I had one wish. That my parents could have a voice of their own.
Standard Bank. It can be.
We're still rolling, giving the most deserving names in South Africa's print and online media landscape their dues tonight for work done, especially over the course of 2019. Now, the Publishers Support Services is fortunate to have many people working to ensure its success and therefore the success of the industry it serves. Its director, who we've just seen, Hussein Kajaka, the chief executive of MNG Media Limited, is one of those people. He's been part of the Publishers Support Services for over a decade, and his commitment has been instrumental in guiding it through the changing times that the newspaper industry has seen. Now, before we go to the final 3 awards of the evening, let's speak to PSS Director Hussein Kajaka, who's just transferred that R1 million to their Standard Bank charity of choice. Hussein now here, and we're working on my personal deposit. Hussein, let's talk about the print media landscape. I mean, you look at the quality of entries this year, the standard's still so high, but an industry that is under immense pressure.
Yeah, it has been very difficult. It's had its challenges. I see that the front page of the Mail and Guardian tomorrow talks about the South African economy, and the headline is too broke for a budget, something to that effect.
Sounds like my life?
Sounds like the Mail and Guardian, sounds like the sector. You know, the saddest part of all of this is the losses, the sacrifices that journalists have had to make. We've seen it. It's always been very difficult to construct a budget, to keep an organization afloat, to keep it sort of profitable and cash positive in an environment that we're experiencing right now. So it's been incredibly difficult. But as you can see from the hard work that journalists have put in, notwithstanding these difficulties, notwithstanding the sacrifices they've made, I think from the publishers, we ought to be extremely grateful to the hard work that these journalists have put in over these many, many years.
So the brilliant journalism is there. What is it going to take to keep the industry alive?
Innovation. You know, we've seen tons of webinars and best practice across the world, new experiences. I think that we've got to come up with a formula that is going to that's going to work. It's going to be difficult to get there. You know, we're way behind many of the first world countries, but we're learning from them. I mean, I think that we're seeing a lot of innovation in the sector right now. We're seeing the newcomers, the Daily Maverick, and who have been bold enough to launch a print edition, and kudos to them for doing that. We've seen the bold moves by News 24 to put in a definitive subscriptions platform now, making readers pay for their for reading. And that type of innovation is going to change and sort of perhaps dislocate, you know, some of the traditional ways and means that we've been running these businesses. And it's going to be hard for a few couple of years, but I'm sure that you know, there's a future for journalism. There's a career ahead, you know, and I don't think anyone should be put off.
It's not all doom and gloom.
What we're going through right now. Yeah.
Hussein Kajaka, good to speak to you tonight, sir.
Thank you very much.
Well, there are no entries for SA Story of the Year, as the winner is selected by the judges from that range of entries that have spanned different categories which you've seen tonight. So the winner of the overall 2020 Story of the Year goes to none other than Pauli van Wyk for an incredible body of work in Scorpio and Daily Maverick titled Cruising Nicely on VBS Money and the Elements of a Bank Heist. Take a look.
The EFF campaigned on a ticket of anti-corruption, and it was important that someone showed that the truth behind the facts is not necessarily what they wanted to show us. It's also a very technical analysis, and it was a difficult investigation to conclude, and I'm very proud of having done it and the way in which I did it.
Van Wyk, and she joins us by Zoom tonight, the winner of South African Story of the Year. Pauli, good evening. I was watching your reaction as all of that was playing out, and it's safe to say you weren't quite expecting it, were you?
No. I'm very surprised, Davy. It's a massive surprise, but I'm also thankful. It was hard work for years, and investigative journalism isn't always sexy, and it's difficult to conclude, and you get a lot of fight back, and this makes it worth it. So thank you. Thank you for the big surprise.
All right, Pauli, hold on for us. I've got with me, by the way, Hussein and Sikuvile Zega as well. Sikuvile Zega was involved with the judging process. Perhaps we can bring her up now. Sikuvile Zega, Pauli, here we go. Story of the year.
Fantastic story, Pauli, by the way. What can you tell us about the pushback, especially, that you got from EFF?
Sure. I think one of the most important things to note is that the EFF learned very quickly from Bell Pottinger in the way that they utilized social media to wage war on journalists and to wage war on the public and to especially wage war on anyone that did not agree with them. And it was the first time that we had to experience something on a scale like they brought to us. No journalist, no matter if you had 30 years experience or if you were Brumilda, one of our fantastic new talents, no one knew how to handle this. Because we were taught that every voice is important, that every voice that comes to you is someone that you have to listen to and that you have to take in what they say and that you have to ensure that their voice is heard. But suddenly, a political party, one of the three biggest parties and perhaps the most popular party in the country, is waging war in a one way a very unfair manner, and in another way bringing up important points but in a populist manner, fighting their war against journalists and not fighting their war on the merits of the case. So it was such a learning curve, and we struggled, and we still struggle.
Pauli van Wyk, stand by for us. Story of the year here at the Sikuvile Awards 2020, and we're going to keep Pauli on air as she's done more than just win for investigative journalism earlier tonight as well as SA Story of the Year as we speak, but she achieved the incredible hat-trick of Sikuvile Awards by winning the overall Journalist of the Year for 2020. Pauli, again, congratulations. You're winning tonight for writing for Scorpio and Daily Maverick, again, for that article on the VBS Bank called Cruising Nicely on VBS Money. It was of exceptional standard and the trophy is so well deserved. Congratulations once again.
Davy, thank you so much. Sure, I'm astounded and at a loss for words, except for the fact that I must say this is actually a team award. Daily Maverick is an amazing place to work at, and my editor, Branko Brikic, and my team has been with me all the way. Without them, I must say, I would not have been able to go all the way, and I would not have been able to do the hard yards and to step into shoes of my journalism heroes. Thank you so much. This means a lot, and And I think the way that you guys ensured that journalism is highlighted and quality journalism is highlighted is also a feather in our hat to ensure that journalists has a benchmark and that Twitter journalism is not the way to go. So thank you.
Pauli van Wyk, our winner this year for Journalist of the Year for 2020. And that is it for the Standard Bank Sikuvile Virtual Awards 2020. Remember, you can follow Publishers Services on Twitter. The handle is @publishers_SS. The hashtag, if you want to catch up on much of the categories that we've announced and the winners tonight, that hashtag on Twitter is SBSJA20, SBSJA20. And if you want to watch the full 55-minute video between Athandiwe Saba, we brought you this earlier. She's news editor at the Mail and Guardian, as well as the international journalist Maria Ressa. Just search for their names and you will find it up available on YouTube as we speak. Thank you so much for watching. And to all the winners and those commended tonight, you will receive your certificates, prizes and trophies in the next few days. I will see you around. Bye-bye.
The Standard Bank Sikuvile Journalism Awards are regarded as the pinnacle of journalism awards in South Africa.
Just here's to these awards opening many more doors for young journalists.
I'm excited to see what the results for Sikuvile 2021 because this year our world was turned upside down by COVID-19. I am so proud of our journalists and how quickly we were able to adapt to this new environment.
I think award ceremonies like this are fantastic.
I think it's a very well organized competition. This year we saw the digital entries and all that, and that really worked very well.
I think it's humbling but also inspiring to compete against one's peers in the industry.
And we're all, as much as we compete, we're all rooting for each other as well.
When one wins a Sikuvile award, it validates your work efforts and that you've earned a place among the best.
But journalism on the whole is perhaps a thankless job sometimes, which is why it's such a great honor to be able to compete in competitions like this.
Even just being selected as a finalist is a huge honor, and I'm very, very grateful.
This profession is not only a viable career option, but an essential one.
It's a dogged world out there in the world of journalism, and you need to be determined, you need to have compassion, have feeling, have empathy and have sympathy.
People trust journalists a lot less because of the influx of fake news.
It's difficult for the public these days to differentiate between fact and fiction and some made up alternative facts.
You're always leaving a little bit of yourself every time you take a picture.
That I've always aimed to add value by solving problems and improving experiences and processes.
Report fairly, accurately and without hesitation.
Keep up with technology, whatever your age, whatever your seniority.
To create more stories on online platforms by combining stories, photos and graphics.
Accountable to our readers, our listeners, our viewers.
If you are sure of your story, if you're sure of what you are doing, go for it. Don't let anything or anyone tell you otherwise.
I've always aimed to add value by solving problems and improving experiences and processes.
To have never backed down and to always tell the truth.
If that story is in public interest, you better find another open door for that story to be told.
The real value in doing a good story is that it makes a change, that it has impact.
We are always looking for that one story, that one picture, that one video that brings down the tyrant, that changes the political arena, that saves a life.
I think we're seeing pretty much the end of the road in the next decade for media as we know it.
And the only solution is for big corporates who are still making money to support the media, or else we'll all pay the price.
But we have to take that first step and take our readers far beyond our imagination.
I'm looking forward to Sikuvile 2021. Hopefully we can all get together again.
I hope that next year for the 2021 version of the competition we can all be together and to celebrate face to face and not have to do this virtually that we are now.